As Madan was saying, I work in London, the city, the equivalent of the Wall Street. Just going through a quick one. I'm very now as an entrepreneur in a way that I left my career, 18 years working in financial derivatives, in FX, interest rates, and so on. You can see a bit of my profile here. I also share on the chat my LinkedIn for whoever wants to connect, to discuss more about these ideas. And I come out with this University of Uncertainty, which is where I am doing my work as of currently. And the reason is because of this concept of uncertainty by itself, because I kind of make me a light bulb in a way when I heard George Soros, which is one of the big investors. You probably are aware of him, and he was in a conference, by the way, in London, where it was mentioned that universities should teach uncertainty, not dogmas. And so this kind of thought-provoking in terms of how we simulate the information. Are we assimilating the things that are going to be outdated, or we should start to think beyond into the unknown? So that's where the concept of university uncertainty in a way comes to, but it has been uncertainty, that keyword that really connects pretty much mostly of my experience as a human being, starting from university. I did my PhD, master degrees in string theory, all that kind of things, and then moved to the city. And uncertainty, I realized it was really the topic, the main topic that I have uncovered from a different angles. What does it mean? What I intend to do here? I don't provide advices. I don't provide in terms of what are the techniques, but I would like to incentivize or be the catalyst in a way to make people think about the prevailing assumptions. And I saw some of the questions put on the chat. Why is the normal distribution not chi-square? These kind of things, but beyond that as well. And above all, to have these interdisciplinary insights that is beyond the mathematics. We actually need to understand the data, for example, as interpretations. There's an ontology in there that we need to understand beyond the techniques, but also like even the philosophical, psychological, all these kind of different perspectives that we need to align, which then helps to connect the dots. Our dots are subjective. Each one has different dots. Each one interprets the world in a different way. Now, why I got into the Bayesian thinking, which technically speaking is the Bayesian inference. But then there is a bit of a translation, starting with AI community of let's now start to be rational by implying Bayesian inference into the way we think to be rational, be driven by the data, so update our beliefs based on what we see, and have all these kind of ways to understand the world. And I got very enthusiastic with that because I immediately saw like certain limitations. And the reason I'm really keen to understand limitations is not like to, try to make, say, infuriate people or even try to understand where should we apply the proper tools. Is really because if we don't understand the limits of what we are using, then we cannot go beyond them, right? So you only be able to go beyond what we are using once we understand the limits. So I'm not saying like a Bayesian is not good. Well, I'm saying that we need to understand so we can actually go beyond to then have a different model applied in different contexts. So again, when it comes to all the mathematics and the models that I come across, and we all come across in different shapes or forms in our lives, they work well until they don't. So, and when they stop working is actually when we need them the most. And there is a bit of a pattern here is because of this human uncertainty, which is really way more than the complexities, because we are conscious and we actually don't like to be told what to do, and we actually act in ways and decide in ways that can be, say, even unpredictable. It can be in ways that is really above quantified in a way that we need to understand beyond the numbers. So this is where I come with the difference between being objective versus being subjective. And the claim here is that being objective in terms of using models and using mathematics It goes well in terms of innovation. I call it kind of horizontal innovation, which is a bit of marginal. So we kind of fine tune what has been already known yesterday. We're going to improve, like say, for example, optimization. But the subjectivity, where it's come really like, say, creativity and so on, I call that the vertical innovation that creates like the leaps say, of the innovation in terms of imagination. I'll go like a quick one over that. And my claim here, and obviously is a claim for you to disagree. I like people when disagree, it's actually we understand more of each other, that the Bayesian thinking is about horizontal innovation and not the vertical innovation. And the reason I say that, and that's where like the post that on LinkedIn that Madan was referring, is that I can say there's like three curses with the Bayesian thinking. And the first one is that the process of updating, say, your statistical distribution is somehow based on the facts and the data, right? But that data is always like historical, or at most what we see as of now. And even then, we could even argue there's subjectivity in the data. But regardless, it is based on historical. So it's a become a backwards viewing, and therefore is missing of what is possible above, beyond the probabilities, right? So it's possibility versus probability. And that means you need to have as well leaps of imagination that goes beyond what you see as the world as of now. The second fact of what I mentioned as the limitation is that the Bayesian thinking is a passive process in a way that it's updating our kind of beliefs or kind of the statistical distribution based on the data that it stumbles on us. So we're going to measure what is available out there, and then we update our distribution or the beliefs based on what we stumble on the data that is coming to us. But that does not include on the exercise of doing a thought-provoking experiments in our mind of what will the world will be. And you can see, okay, but it's a bit of an hypothesis. It's a bit more than that. And this is where the data is kind of artificial data that you can think of in terms of exercising that thought-provoking experiments in your mind. And therefore, there will be data in a way that is not visible, but is more in your mind about exercising that thoughts. Now, because of that, there's no kind of lack of leaps of imagination, and thought-provoking is a kind of a backwards based on historical and also based on so-called facts. Therefore, it has kind of a big issues when it comes to helping doing the paradigm shifts in the sense of updating your really beliefs in a completely different way. So so once you start to update your distributions or you update your beliefs, it's always going to be based on the priors, right? So it's going to have this self-fulfilling prophecy as the things have already started in the wrong place. You start to collect data in a way to kind of start to make that evidence, and it becomes a bit of a self-fulfilling prophecy in a way, and that it can be seen, for example, in the markets. So therefore leading to a dogmas and not allowing you to jump from one belief to another, just like, in an immediate way. So I'll give you a bit of examples here because that's where people understand a bit more. For example, that leaps of imagination. There's like the imaginary number for the technical people, before Descartes and so on. How will then say the imaginary number that it says that I squared is equal to -1, will it have been possible being created, or if it was through Bayesian thinking only? It was something that was not there, you could not see it, but somehow someone came up with imagination. The same thing in a way for the Bitcoin. It was something that it requires a bit of a leap of imagination in terms of refunding, kind of making the assumptions of all the financial system in a way to be shaken and come up with a completely different system in a way that is, is a belief system, but it requires a lot of imagination to go beyond that what has been observed, right? In terms of a thought experiment, there's like this thought experiment of Albert Einstein that was thinking about traveling on a light beam, and he was thinking about that since childhood. And there are like other kind of thought experiments to exercise your lateral thinking. So Edward de Bono, considered the father of lateral thinking, talks about that. So these are like some of the thought provocative exercises to make you actually realize what will then be the new data, kind of the imaginary data, and that comes out then in terms of exercising these impossible scenarios. And the third one is about self-fulfilling prophecy. I put this example here just really like to make people to disagree, because you can think about the hypothesis that the sun circles around the earth, and every day you observe that, and then you can see, well, that is the evidence, and becomes then a dogma. So everybody believes that is the sun circling around the earth because that's what you see, and that is the data, and every day you update that belief, and it's becoming a confirmation. Obviously, we know that is not the case because then you could see like observe in a different way, but limited to the technology of the time, that was the belief, and people in a way they were thinking in a Bayesian way, and that led to that dogma until someone started to think in a different hypothesis, in a different scenarios that require beyond what they observe as a fact. So that's what I mean, like the uncertainty, the element that requires like a different ways to see the world. So prevailing the assumptions, and that is like obviously critical in terms of any model, but also like how you understand the data itself. Connecting the dots, the triangulation. This is something that Madan, I really got attention when he started to mention that regardless of the data, that is more and more data, it doesn't mean that actually have more clarity. You actually need to have, when it comes to the decision in terms of marketing or in terms of trading and so on, you actually need to have that triangulation or understanding like the comparison, and then it becomes more a judgment more than like a science in terms of objectivity. And that's what I call the data ontology, because the data itself has a different ways to be interpreted for different ways to make analysis to the same data, and we're achieving different conclusions. And obviously, the last one is about exercising beyond the logical, beyond the deductive thinking, which is mostly like where the Bayesian is coming from, to exercise, say, the abstract or the critical or creativity, and why not even philosophical explorations or what the meaning is, what we are doing here. And I just conclude because I come out before this class, and by accident, I had this book on my desk, which is the Tocqueville, probably one of the fathers of modern marketing. And one thing that he explicitly says is that I hate rules, right? And the Bayesian thinking in a way is based on rules, mathematical, that work well until they don't. And therefore, the thought experiment that I will explore here, what will today's marketing look like if Tocqueville had been a Bayesian thinker? So, and without that, that's all. Thank you.